Vice Chair Archuleta, this is Alma Ruiz. Just wanted to give you a heads up that we just got notification that City Manager will be a few minutes late, but we can get started if we have at 3 o'clock when we have a full quorum. Here we go.
Okay. Alma, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Okay. Do we expect the 2 members of the city council to attend?
I I got notification that Sorg is, oh, he's here, so Sorg will participate. So it looks like we have yourself, Chair Little. We have Commissioner Sorg, Commissioner Hardy, Commissioner Johnson, Commissioner Carmichael. Commissioner Bencomo sent an email saying that she would not be present today.
Okay. Okay, it's 3 o'clock and we have a quorum today. I'm going to call the meeting of the Las Cruces Utilities Commission, December 10th, 2020 meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is for me to provide information to you from the executive order of the governor through the Attorney General's office to let you know the following. All members of the public should be afforded remote access via live stream or other similar technology if possible, or call-in number for listening by phone. The chair should suspend discussion if the audio or video is interrupted, and all votes of the public body must be by roll call or vote. So with that, we're going to proceed with the first item on the agenda, which is a conflict of interest. Does any member of the board or any member of the city staff have any known conflict of interest with any item on the agenda? Chair Little?
None.
Commissioner Carmichael?
None.
Commissioner Hardy?
None.
Commissioner Johnson?
No.
Commissioner Sorg?
No.
And staff?
No, sir, none for staff.
And the chair, no. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the acceptance of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the board?
Carmichael, so moved.
Is there a second?
Second, Johnson.
Second, Johnson. Any further discussion? If not, roll call. Chair Little?
Aye.
Chair Carmichael?
Yes.
Chair Hardy?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Sorg?
Yes.
Next item on the agenda is the administrative report. Yes,
Chair Archuleta, I apologize for the interruption. I can't raise my hand as a host. I just wanted to clarify. I wanted to make sure I heard it correctly for the record. Did you ask for acceptance of the agenda?
yes,
Thank you. Sorry, my apologies.
yes. Commissioner Johnson was seconded. The next item on the agenda is the administrative report. Ms. Walsh?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Delilah Walsh, Utilities Director. And if we can go to the first slide, and I'll turn it over to Joe Provencio.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Jose Provencio, Deputy Director, Business Services Section. Starting off with a briefing and with respect to utility assistance programs, utility billing assistance, as of November, at the end of the month. The data that I provided here is provides and presents the information in terms of the activity for the month of November, excuse me. If I could ask the slide to be advanced. At this point here, we provide the information with respect to the assistance and the funding level and the balance remaining. The information that presented here is for the month of November. And advancing to the next slide. Presents in a graphical format the assistance available as of November 30th of this year. It's at $54,000. We continue to assist our customers, both residential and commercial, to the extent the funds are available. I will migrate to presenting the information for the first quarter financial presentation for the utility. If I can advance one more slide. Current slide here presents the first quarter comparison and the budget and actual revenue, actual revenues and expenses. Current year, prior year. In general, revenues are ahead of expenses across the board. And if I could ask the slide to be advanced, we'll present the detail or the by utility presentation. Slide number 3 presents the revenue and expenses, actual and budgeted amounts and percent and within the projections for the budget. Gas is highly seasonal. As of the first quarter, it's starting to, it really doesn't reflect the core activity and core sales for gas service. Either way, in terms of the first quarter, both revenue and expenses are a little bit are under the projected amount. Various factors driving that, but there's still sufficient headroom with respect to the budget. We'll see more of the alignment in terms of budgeted expenses and comparing it to the projections here by the second quarter. If we can advance to the next slide. Water continues its good progression. As a result of the rate review, revenues are a bit ahead of the projection. Expenses are a little bit below the projection. Let me check my notes here. Main driver here is still the work. Some of the vacancies are still being worked on. Overall, the revenues reflect the second phase of the water rate review being coming into play as of December 1st, 2018. We're on track in terms of the performance for the water and ready to progress to the next slide for wastewater. You could advance the slide, please. Okay, thank you. Wastewater performance with respect to revenues is right on projection. Again, this also reflects the second phase of the rate increase coming into play. Expenses are a little less than projected. Some of the notes here reflect that some of the planned maintenance has not come online yet, but there are plans to get that planned maintenance online and conducted. But at this point, it was less than it was projected when the budget was prepared. Advancing to the next slide, look at performance for solid waste. Both revenue and expenses are well within the projections. The revenues tend to reflect some of the slight growth in the service area. Overall, they're in good condition, and we'll brief you with any updates here for the operating utilities for the second quarter. If I could ask the slide to be advanced for shared services. Again, it's reflective of the ongoing efforts to fill vacancies. It's below the projected levels when the budget was prepared. 15%. We are all making best efforts in terms of getting positions filled as fast as possible. With that, I'll stand by with any questions you may have.
Commissioner Carmichael, did you have a question? Commissioner Carmichael, did you have a question?
Joe, the city manager report, I didn't add up these individual sheets that you just went through, but the city manager report had a summary there that I hadn't seen before. Showed the revised, I guess it's revised budget of $76 million in expenses against $70 million in revenue for the year. And I was just trying to understand that a little bit. Can you explain?
Chairman and Commissioner Carmichael, I would defer or ask Dominique to help me with that in terms of that report.
Would you like me to bring that up and share the document, and then Commissioner Carmichael, if you want to tell us what page, I can go
Page
to.
Page 103.
Hold on. Are you referring to this backup documentation,
There's a
Commissioner?
graph. There's a table down below. You can move that up.
Okay.
There. That's what I'm looking at, the $70 million revised budget on revenues and $76 million in expenditures.
I will defer to Dominique Rodriguez, Manager of Rate and Economic Analysis, for any insight to this.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Commissioner Carmichael, so this is the revised budget that is out there right now for revenues, and this includes gas, water, wastewater, and solid waste, so encompasses the entire utility. And the same goes for the personnel, operating, and capital. Everything is broken down by our peak by line of business, and then this is rolled into this total amount. I guess if I were you, my question would be, why is our total expenditures higher than our revenues, maybe? And that is because that our expenditures show higher, but we have fund balance. So we have reserves or cash in these different funds where the expenses are. And so we're able to use that to offset anything that our revenues do not cover.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
This is William Little. That answer is disquieting. We need to understand whether or not we are going to the bank.
Mr. Chairman, Chairman Little, it not necessarily that we're going to the bank. What happens is at the end of the year, whatever isn't spent in this total revised budget is then what we do is we're then carrying it over and using it in the next year where the revenues don't cover it. So we're not going to the bank, and we're not taking away reserve money to cover debt or anything like that. It's just in the fund summaries, the bottom line has that extra that wasn't used in the prior year.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Mr. Lyda, did you have a question or comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioner Carmichael. I was actually going to say what Dominique just said, but I want to also assure you that we have to make adjustments too, because when the books close for the entire city, we see adjustments for our fund balances because we're paying bills all the way till the end of June 30th. And even though we're still doing that, we start our new budget year on July 1st. So a lot of these, just as Dominique mentioned, are just carryovers from a prior year. For example, we had one purchase that was over $200,000. It was budgeted for an FY20, but we had to carry the expense into 21. So that balance moves with it. So the utility financially is in great shape. And you'll see that in Joe's summary reports. That's just a better reflection. But I do want to assure you that that's the primary, that plus the depreciation expenses that we have to recognize at quarter ends makes a difference. So it's not real cash or real money being taken down on fund balance. We're still growing our fund balances.
Mr. Carmichael again, perhaps in the future, there may be some way to display that to make it a little bit clearer. I don't know if the city manager has asked for clarification of that or not, but I think I certainly would. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think putting something like just a footnote to explain it would be a good idea, because as those fund balances roll over to fiscal years, that's really where the meat of the reflection is.
Yeah, it'd be good to see the detail of that and where those fund balances and the carryover actually occurred. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Carmichael. Mr. Provencio, please proceed.
If I could just interject, this is Alma Ruiz, City Senior Office Manager for the Utilities. Just as a housekeeping note, please use your raise the hand feature when you're going to talk, and also kindly to introduce yourselves before you speak. Thank you.
Vice Chair Archuleta, that completed the presentation for the financial, first quarter financial presentation.
Okay, let's move on to the next item then. Ms. Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Again, Delilah Walsh, Utilities Director, for the record. We'll start with our HR activity report for the month of November. Our vacancies did increase by 3 more positions in November. However, I can tell you we saw really good progress at the beginning of December. Unfortunately, that progress was several internal promotions again. However, I'm very excited to say in the last month, we are onboarding actual new employees, and that's a big progression and change for us here in December. The fact that we're bringing in new people and not just promoting internally and then keeping those vacancies consistent. So I think you'll see good progress after the December report. For November lines of business, our vacancies remain pretty much the same as they were in October. Next slide. Regarding the strategic business result to fill vacancies within 6 weeks, as you know, we're very far off that. And with COVID, that's not gotten any better, and I don't anticipate it will until we get to a better normal working environment. Right now, it does take us an average of 39 weeks to onboard a new employee from the time we request the opening or request the vacancy to be filled to the time it is filled. So we're getting that number is growing more and more each month, just slightly more. You can see there was a big jump from March to April when COVID hit and when the city started to shut down and send employees home for quarantine or for remote work. So we're not seeing much improvement. I don't think we will see much improvement until we get well into 2021 and probably calendar year 22. Regarding the workflow by task owner, a majority of the workflow is in HR. The next, of course, means that they're waiting on action items from us and utilities, 32% of those items. But the good news is the inflow. That means we have positions that have been hired, they're posted, there's something in the flow. It's either open or we're waiting for the new employee to start. That's at 12%. And what that speaks to is the progress. If things are in flow, that means we've done our tasks, HR has done their tasks, and we're just waiting for the timing to line up and get that new employee hired. So the inflow number is the one that I watch closely, and we are seeing good progress there. Next slide. Since October of last year, we have filled 60 positions. That's significant. That is more than one position every single week onboarding or starting with the utility. And when you think about the amount of work required to recruit, to get people in place, to do the training, that's significant that we're doing more than one person a week. We are awaiting 7 reclassification requests. Those are requests that we have sent to HR asking to move a position from one program to another. This one, Adrian's actually working on reconciling because we made these requests in FY20, meaning sometime between January and March of 2020, late in the other fiscal year. We budgeted FY21 for these new positions and reclassifications, but they still haven't been released to us in order to fill them. So that's significant because we're waiting on paperwork essentially before we can even start recruiting for these positions. So Adrian's working on reconciling that with budget and with HR. We are waiting for new job descriptions via remitted PAQs. That means we can't even reclassify the vacant position until we have a job description for the reclassification. 4 positions are awaiting release of candidates. That means people applied, the position has closed, and we need HR to give us the candidates so we can start ranking them for interviews. 3 positions are still awaiting post in NeoGov, meaning we've requested the positions to be open, but HR has to approve that on the NeoGov site and post it to the recruitment site. And 5 positions are awaiting HR authorization to interview. So that means we've ranked the applicants and we've sent in our list of who we'd like to interview, but HR still reviews that paperwork and has to tell us when we're allowed to start scheduling those interviews. Next slide. We can have the next slide. The staffing specialist position was posted and actually closed. Adrian received the release of candidates. I believe we had over 90 applicants. When I looked at it initially, I believe we have 17 internal applicants, whether they're with the city or maybe be with a temporary agency with the city. So I'm very excited that we'll be able to start that process and fill the position. We are still focusing on staffing while complying with COVID-19. Our intern journeyman program, I don't have any change on that until we get our staffing specialist, but I anticipate starting it to prep for the fall school year. So I don't think we're going to be recruiting anybody in the spring. However, we want to have the program in place to recruit high school and college students in the spring, or in the fall of 2021. I'm very excited that 2 of our interns are on track to graduate in December. So they've done all their paperwork. I believe Cassie just did an article for them, our 2 interns, and we've already earmarked the positions where they'll be transferring into the utility.
Ms. Walsh, Chair Little has a question.
Yes, sir.
Okay, this is William Little. One of the actions that we were awaiting was actually city HR bulking up to be able to increase their throughput. Do we know if anything is happening on that front?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Little, Delilah Walsh, Utilities Director, I can tell you that HR has onboarded their new deputy director, which is 1 new position. And I do know that they are working on recruiting some of their other positions. So they are making progress on their side. I don't think Mr. Keeley's on the line yet. He may be late to the meeting, but I can assure you that they are working to get their staffing rounded out. I will tell you, I had a good conversation with our director, Joe Richards. She's our HR director, and with our analyst. And what we've decided is once the staffing specialist is onboarded with the utility, that individual will be spending probably the first 1 to 2 weeks with HR to ensure that they've got all the processes down and they're meeting the needs of HR. So we don't have this sort of crosstalk or misunderstandings or miscommunication or wrong paperwork. I want that person to learn all the good habits that HR expects and then bring that to the utility. So we've already had that discussion too. So we can ensure that we're moving even faster once we're onboarded.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Ms. Delilah.
If you can go to the next slide. Oh, I'm sorry, that was it for HR. If there aren't any other questions, I can move on to our COVID update.
Go ahead.
Okay. So as you know, our continuity of operations plan is still in effect. All our programs are 100% operational. Our return to work plan is in effect under phase 1 through tomorrow. And the reason it's tomorrow is because that's when the governor's current public health order expires. There's actually a press conference going on right now, and I forgot to log into my phone, but I'll go through that again once our meeting's over so I can review the meeting tonight to determine any changes to the governor's orders effective on December 12th. We're still having our building levels at lower capacity and no shared offices. We're still limiting the amount of people who can gather. I have discontinued the situation reports. I talked to the city manager, and the information we're providing, we're in a normal situation again. We were doing that originally through all the city departments in order to let the manager know if there were any issues coming up or anything that we could prevent. Right now, the utility and most of the city, we're managing all our operations under COVID. And we have plenty of PPE. We're managing our staff demands. We're working with temps. So we won't be doing the sit reps weekly anymore. However, I do have staff informing me should something happen or should we have a situation we need to report, I can send that off to the board. Most likely what's going to happen is I'll do a monthly situation report that gives us a balance of the utility assistance fund and just gives you an update of where we are with the current health order. So they just won't happen every week anymore. And of course, I'll highlight anything that I think is important. So I'll give you an example. We were looking at our delinquency rate. That is very well managed now, thanks to Joe Provencio and Stephen's team. Stephen is our billing and receivables manager, and they're doing great on that. Stephen actually did a full report, a peer review of other utilities in the state of New Mexico, and most of them are running a 19 to 26% delinquency rate. Our utility is closer to 9%, which is a lot for us. But when we look at the rest of the state, we're actually doing quite well. And much of that is due to the fact that the council has given us the utility assistance fund. On that note, Joe did report to you the balance of our fund. I think it's closer to 42,000 at the end of this week. However, we did receive CARES Act funding. And so we're expecting another $75,000 to $150,000 to that fund. I'm thinking it's going to be 150,000. We're still working with finance because they're going through what was awarded through CARES Act and then assigning the money to the expenses that we reported to the state of New Mexico. So it sounds like we're going to get the full 150,000 back through the CARES Act reimbursement. So that utilities assistance fund, even though we're closer to a $42,000 balance today, by the beginning of the calendar year, we should be back up to 150. So we'll be able to ride out the rest of the pandemic, hopefully. That's the intent through the CARES Act. So that's somewhat good news in that sense. But really, when it comes to PPE and employee protection, we are very well stocked. Gary Byram at the warehouse has done a great job keeping us in stock with PPE, and I don't have any operational concerns at this time. So that sit rep will still come to you. It'll just be less frequently. Next slide. We are compliant with the FFCRA. That act does expire, or the provisions of that act, at the end of the year, meaning that that additional Coronavirus Response Act, FMLA, is set to expire at the end of the year. There is talk that Congress will renew that. However, we don't have any official changes yet. So I will keep you notified should that happen. However, our deputy directors and their supervisors have done a great job to meet the needs of our staff while also meeting the operational needs of the utility. We're still operating under the governor's orders for COVID positive cases. We are quarantining people who have COVID exposure. We will continue sanitizing common areas and as well as our shared offices and equipment. With that, I anticipate we'll have those temporary staff members through the end of the fiscal year. We are hiring more temporary staff members, particularly in gas. I think we have one in solid waste now, to help us with the quarantine requirements, meaning that we have to send employees home when they're quarantined, and with any other issues regarding leave or the necessity to take leave before the end of the year. I've talked about the assistance funding. With that, do I have any questions related to our COVID response?
Ms. Walsh, this is the Vice Chair. How many employees are currently at home quarantined right now?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I believe we have, I want to say 10 right now that are under quarantine, but
Okay.
they're rolling back in. So we get 1 or 2 back every day. And I will tell you on that note, most of the exposure, if not all, I can't be 100% certain, but if not all, has been through outside activities or exposure to positive family members. So in other words, my spouse or somebody in my household was exposed at their workplace or somewhere else and came home positive, and then I have exposure. So the exposure has not happened, knock on wood, at the utility. We're doing a great job with social distancing, with following COVID safe practices, and with sanitization.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. With that, we're gonna move over to our water litigation, and I'll turn it over to Adrian Widmer.
Thank you, Delilah. Mr. Vice Chairman, Commissioners, I'm Adrian Widmer. I'm the Interim Assistant Utilities Director, and I'll be updating you on water litigation. For the Texas v. New Mexico and Colorado update, right now, confidential mediation hearings are to start on Monday. And what that means is they are via video conference, and each side gets to tell their story to the judge on their own, confidential. Texas will be first, and they will be going on Monday. If they're completed on Monday, then New Mexico will start. And after that is completed, then the judge will take all of that under consideration and may make an okay for the amicis, which is, for instance, the city of Las Cruces, to do any kind of presentation. It is anticipated that these presentations may actually take more than one day. So the actual time frame is going to be hard to tell. So if, for instance, they say the amicis can participate, then that'll be on a moment's notice for our lawyers and us to actually participate. Then on the next one, on the Griggs Walnut, the federal litigation, the final litigant in that is a private company, and motions related to the case, they continue. We don't really expect any kind of news until probably mid-January, only because additional briefs and motions are being filed. On the West Griggs property, the public notice was provided to the public, and the public has until December the 14th to make any kind of written comments. After the written comment time period, then NMED will be going through there, and within 90 days after the 14th of December, which is approximately February the 15th, we expect to hear from them to determine if there's any comments. They may come back to us sooner requesting a public meeting, but we won't know until they see what kind of comments are coming through there. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
Are there any questions? If not, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Delilah Walsh, Utilities Director. We'll have Waleed will be presenting for projects.
Thank you, Delilah. Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Waleed Abu Isa. I'm the Senior Engineer here at the Utilities Technical Support Section. And I'm going to update you on the progress of the following projects. The Water Service Line and Patch Replacement Project number 19-20-094A. The Drilling and Developing Replacement Water Well 40 Rebid Project number 20-21-024. And the Talavera Low Pressure Gas Distribution Network Phase 3A Project number 19-20-124. Next slide, please. For the water service line patch replacement project number 19-20-094A, the contractor on this is Ferguson Construction Company. The contract cost $360,082.44. The contract time 120 working days. This project started on November 2nd, 2020. And the estimated completion date is April 28, 2021. The construction percent complete is 11% and payment as 0%. This project consists of 100 water service lines and asphalt patch replacement at various locations throughout the city where leaks have been identified by city staff. We stand now at 13 services. There have been 13 services have been replaced as of December 1st, 2020. And as you see to the right, there's some pictures there. We installed some pictures in this slide showing that the first one, the cutting of the asphalt, and the second one, contractors are using the bullet to bore the service line. Do you have any questions about this project before I move on?
Question.
Yes,
Go ahead,
sir.
Commissioner Sorg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Were these leaks that this project is fixing located by the new meters that we have in the city?
Chairman and Commissioner Sorg, yes, actually all the meters, they have been the automatic meter reading, you mean?
Yes, the AMRs,
yes, all of the meters have been replaced, to my understanding for those.
Are these leaks that you're repairing, were they detected by the AMRs?
Chairman, Commissioner Sorg, no, actually we had a group of detection leak group that they identified these 100 service lines before, and through scanning equipment that works on the sound, that if they put the equipment on that area, they will detect it through the sounds, hearing that there's a leak there.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Please proceed.
Okay, next slide, please. Okay, the next project is the drilling and developing replacement water well number 40, rebid project number 20-21-024. As you see, this slide shows the location of the well that under construction, under drilling right now. Next slide, please. The contractor on this project is KP Ventures Well Drilling Pump Company, LLC. The contract cost $1,193,051.89. Contract time 80 calendar days. Project started in November 11, 2020, and the estimated completion date January 30, 2021. The percent completed on the construction 5% and 0% on the payment. Description of the project actually, let me give you just a little bit background about this project. There is an existing well right there that was drilled in 1988. However, we start seeing salt coming out from that well, so do a screen collapse. So we had to abandon in place and drill another one next to it, close to it. The description of the project, plug and abandoned existing well 40, drilling 1,160 linear feet below ground level, 28-inch pilot borehole, and install 18-inch stainless steel and blank casing disinfect, and submit water quality analysis. The summary of the project, existing well 40 has been plugged and abandoned as per New Mexico State Engineer guidelines. Conductor casing installed, conductor casing to prevent unconsolidated settlements and rainwater entering bore. Pilot borehole drilling was started on last Monday, December 7th, 2020. And as you see to the right, there's some pictures there showing that they were pouring concrete around the conductor casing and pumping neat cement into existing well on the second picture.
Any questions?
We just want to add to this also that there is a scheduled site visit by our director, Ms. Walsh, and on December 17th, and we want to extend the invite to the board members if they want to join or visit the site. But unfortunately, due to the COVID-19 governor's guideline of gathering, the threshold is 5. So please, if you let us know who wants to attend or to go visit the site, so we can arrange for multiple visits if necessary. And this can be arranged with Delilah, and we can schedule upon that.
Okay, Commissioner Little has a question, and so does Ms. Walsh. Go ahead, Commissioner Little.
I was wondering how much of the old well 40 borehole was backfilled.
How much, Chairman and Commissioner, I'm sorry, I did not understand the question.
How much of the old well was plugged?
I'll refer, I'll defer this question to my supervisor, Carl Clark, the Deputy Director of the Environmental and Technical Support Section. He will answer this question.
Chairman, Commissioners, Carl Clark, Deputy Director, Environmental and Technical Support. I believe it was Commissioner Johnson that asked that question.
Commissioner Little.
Oh, Commissioner Little. So your question, Commissioner Little, was how much did we plug?
Right.
Chairman, Commissioner Little, I don't have the specific quantity, and I know that typically when we plug these wells, we actually backfill the entire well with concrete. So, and actually my project manager who's on site, well, actually we have a project manager and we have a site inspector. As you're aware, John Shoemaker and Associates provides us with a geohydrologist out there on site at this time. But I don't have the exact quantity and the exact depth to give to you right now.
Well, that's all right. If you usually fill it from bottom to top, that's all I need to know. Thanks.
And that's my understanding as well. That's our standard operating procedure. And so I'm sure that that's how John Shoemaker helped us when we wrote the specs, that's how it was written.
Ms. Walsh, did you have a question or comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Delilah Walsh, Utilities Director. I just wanted to go back to the leak detection real quick. Walid's correct. It's not something we found with the customer data that we're looking now at Utility Hawk and AMI. These are not the leaks we found in that system. However, it is part of the AMI system. So we detected these leaks because we saw water usage anomalies occurring in the data. And so our leak detection unit goes out and verifies if there's really a leak based on that data scatter. So it is part of the JCI project and it is part of leak detection. It's just not on the customer side of the meter that we're looking at today. So these are the ones that were on the utility side that we were seeing data anomalies. And so leak detection goes out, verifies whether that anomaly is possibly a leak, and then marks it down on what they determine it is. So it was part of the JCI system, just a different earlier part of it.
Okay, that clarifies it. Thank you.
Thank you, Delia. Unless you have a question on this, I will move on to the next slide, please. Next project is the Talavera Low Pressure Gas Distribution Network, Phase 3A, project number 19-20-124. The map below shows the project's area limit, as you see, is south of Dripping Spring, north and east around Soledad Canyon Road as part of multi-phase projects. This is Phase 3A to provide gas services to the Talavera area. Next, please. Next slide, please. Delilah. Next slide, please, if you can. Thank you.
And
The contractor on this is Smithco Construction. The contract cost $3,060,433.60. Contract time 212 work days. Project started in August 10, 2020, and the estimated completion date is June 15, 2021. The construction percent complete 23% and the payment at 26%. Project consists of the installation of 61,500 linear feet of 2-inch polyethylene gas line, the installation of 14,000 linear feet of 4-inch PE gas line, the installation of pipe bedding, pavement patch, driveway removal and replacement, landscaping removal and replacement. Summary of the project: contractor completed, installed 9,406 linear feet that consist of 67% of the 4-inch PE gas pipeline, and there are 5,439 linear feet of 2-inch PE gas line that has been installed that consists of 9% of the project. And there are 25 of 3/4-inch gas service stub outs that have been installed, which consists of 14%. So with this, I conclude my projects update, and I will stand by for any questions that you may have.
Any questions? If not, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Now we're ready for board resolutions.
thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Delilah Walsh, Utilities Director. Our first is Resolution 16-17-124C, and I will turn that over to Mr. Provencio.
Vice Chair, Commissioners, Jose Provencio, Deputy Director of Business Services. Before you, you have resolution number 16-17-124C, which is establishes the funding for the measurement and verification phase of the AMI project. And now that it's gotten to the point of being completed. So this is a funding amount for $419,000. This will be a ongoing annual reporting done by JCI that quantifies the actual savings achieved on an annual basis, both the savings and revenue recovery or lost the recovery of unbilled revenue through the system that we installed. This will be, I'm sorry. This will establish the process in the book and the booking and the payment for those services delivered by JCI. With that, I'll stand by for any questions you may have.
Chair Little, did you have a question or comment?
Yes, William Little, we have the cart before the horse. We need to ask for a motion to
Oh,
approve this resolution and then get the
That's right.
discussion.
Commissioner
Okay.
Sorg moves to approve.
is there a second?
Carmichael, second.
Any questions on this one? Mr. Carmichael, you have a question?
Yes, Joe, I can't remember exactly how this works, but the measurement and verification, I assume, goes on entire year, and then there's some kind of final report. Do we get interim reports then as the year goes along? Do you know?
Vice Chair and Commissioner, this process is the final end of the investment grade audit, where the initial study coming out from the completion of the project will review all the data from all the information that we've provided that initially established what the savings had the potential to achieve. So it's an annual report that JCI conducts, quantifying those savings and providing that report to the utility department. And the expenses are pretty much in terms of visually declining over time, because the initial upfront cost of establishing the procedures and the process to quantify the savings is upfront, and the subsequent reports that will be submitted will go throughout the entirety of the contract.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, we're ready for a vote. Chair Little,
Aye.
Commissioner Carmichael,
Yes.
Commissioner Hardy,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Sorg,
Yes,
and the chair, yes. The next item is resolution number 17-18-071A, a resolution approving an amendment to a price agreement of natural gas and diesel engine repair and maintenance to Wagner Equipment Company of Aurora, Colorado, to add $50,000 for a new not to exceed amount of $200,000 to continue through the remainder of the price agreement, which expires on March 13, 2021. Do I have a motion to approve?
William Little, move to approve.
Sorg seconds it.
Second? Was there a second?
Yeah, it's Sorg. I did it.
Okay, Commissioner Sorg, thank you. Discussion?
Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. This is John Morozic, Deputy Director, Wastewater. This resolution 17-18-071A is an amendment to the price agreement with Wagner Equipment Company for natural gas and diesel engine repair and maintenance for the wastewater and water lines of business. Earlier this year, the natural gas powered blowers at Jacob Hands required more repair and maintenance than expected due to failure of critical components. This extra repair activity used the total of the original price agreement. This amendment for an extra $50,000 is expected to enable continued repair and maintenance activities through the end of the price agreement in March of 2021. I'll stand for your questions.
Are there any questions? Hearing none.
Yes.
Yes,
Commissioner Johnson, I have a question.
okay.
Your plot shows that you're projecting to the end of the fiscal year, that's 176,000. I assume that's the amount you expect to be expended by the March 13th date. But you're asking for extend it to 200,000. I just wonder why that big a discrepancy.
Chairman, Commissioner Johnson, our expectation is to only spend that much, but these are 20-year-old blowers, and if something else critical fails, we'd like to make sure we have enough room to we can get them repaired.
So you're putting a large amount of contingency in there, which just means for between March and the end of the fiscal year, you're tying that funding up that can't be used for something else.
Well, there are somewhere around 12.5 generators and engines. And so hopefully we don't have anything catastrophic take place, but we'd like to make sure that we're ready if it does.
Okay, what I understand is you just need more contingency than would normally be used.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Question, Mr. Carmichael?
Commissioner Carmichael, John, you mentioned failure of increased failure, I guess was the terminology of some critical components. Is this some kind of trend that we're seeing that was unexpected or due to some one or two series of things happening, or have you been able to analyze that?
Yeah, Chairman, Commissioner, excuse me, Carmichael, the failures were in 3 coupling units, and they're all about the same age, and they all failed in about a 2-week period. Since those have been replaced and we have an extra one on the shelf, we're no longer concerned about that sort of failure. But these devices, again, are 20 years old, and they've been in service pretty much 24/7 the whole time. So we are concerned about increasing trends in failures, but also those devices are planned to be replaced in the performance contract at the wastewater plant.
Okay, thank you. That was my next question was replacement plans. Sounds like that's something that needs to get done soon. Thank you very much, John.
You're welcome.
I have a question for Commissioner Little and then Carl Clark.
Commissioner Carmichael asked my question. Thank you.
Carl, did you have a comment?
Yes, Vice Chair Archuleta and Commissioner Carmichael. Yes, John answered that. The replacement of those natural gas engine blowers will come with the Johnson Controls Energy Performance Contract at the wastewater treatment plants, where we're installing electric blowers or electric motors for new blowers. And so we'll be eliminating those natural gas diesel engines, or natural gas engines. So they, as soon as we can get those installed, we'll be taking those old engines offline, and John won't have to worry about those particular engines anymore.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Adrian, did you have a comment? Adrian Widmer, did you have a comment?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Adrian Widmer, Interim Assistant Utilities Director. I just want you all to feel comfortable that the utility operates and maintains all of its equipment on a regular basis. It just so happens that as things get older, we start noticing that they start having additional problems, and John is being proactive to make sure that money is there to keep them going until they are replaced. Just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you.
This Commissioner Carmichael, I can verify that as things get older, they do tend to break.
All right, hearing no other comments or questions, we're ready for a vote. Chair Little,
Aye.
Commissioner Carmichael,
Yes.
Commissioner Hardy,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Sorg,
Yes.
and the chair, yes. The next item is resolution number 2021-009, a resolution awarding a construction contract for the Sandhills Sewer Interceptor Phase 2 project number 20-21-009 to Morrow Enterprises, Inc. of Las Cruces, New Mexico, for a total contract award amount of $1,526,619.84. Call for a motion.
Move to approve this, Commissioner Johnson.
William Little,
Second.
second.
Who seconded?
William Little.
Okay, William Little, second. Discussion.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Vice Chair Archuleta, Commissioners. Carl Clark, Deputy Director, Environmental and Technical Support. I can tell you that when I first came on over here on the utility side, this project was in play and we were trying to get the design done, and we got the design done, and we ran into right-of-way issues with a private property owner and Settlers Pass. In June of 2018, the board approved a settlement disputed claims with Eddie Binns. So we paid him for the easement that we needed in place. And after that, we moved quickly back into the design phase with Moles and Corbin, who updated all the plans because of the age of the project. They had to go back and take a look and resurvey. And so we updated the plans. As you're aware, we completed phase 1 already, which was the lower half that is west of I-25. If you can picture, actually, we didn't do a very good job of indicating Highway 70 and I-25, but where the tie-in to stub out at the end of phase 1, that's I-25. We've already crossed I-25 with this, with the first phase. And so now we're carrying on from I-25 heading east, where we'll tie into Jade Avenue. This project has approximately 10,000 lineal feet of 15-inch SDR35 sewer main that we're going to be installing. That's one of the biggest items. The jack and bore under Rinconada that we're going to be performing. And then there's going to be substantial reseeding along that arroyo, and because we're going to be disturbing a lot of ground. In addition, we're also including some gravel for an access road for our Vector trucks to be able to check on our manholes and do any kind of work that they need to do out there in that location. We're quite confident in this contractor that he'll do a good job, and we will, upon approval, we're going to move quickly into construction and get this long time project behind us. Any questions?
Commissioner Sorg, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Vice Chair. Yeah, on phase 1, in the Sandhill Arroyo there, I walk it. I used to walk it quite a bit last month or so, not so much, but it's a shame that we can't reseed that somehow better, because there's almost nothing growing on that land. But I know it's hard here in the desert, and we're especially in a year when we didn't get much water. But I was wondering, is there more than one way to reseed it? Is there a better way, maybe?
Chairman, Vice Chair Archuleta, Commissioner Sorg, Councilor Sorg, we can go back and take a look at phase 1. Typically, once you reseed it, it does take a bit. I know we ended that project towards the tail end of the summer. So when we seed, the seed is dormant there until you start getting rainfall on there. And we really haven't seen much until today. And that may not even be a significant amount. And it does take a couple of years for reseed efforts to take over again. They don't happen, typically I don't see them happen within 1 year's time frame. It usually takes a little longer. It's an exceptional wet year if it does take off. So we might want to give it a little bit of time, and what we could do if we're not seeing any kind of growth come back at around the monsoon season, we can take a look at it again and see what we can do to try and bring back the vegetation there.
That would be nice.
Yes, sir.
I actually have a video after a storm, or not so much a storm, but a rainfall anyway, in which the water is flowing down the arroyo there right through or alongside of the area that was disturbed for the pipeline. And there's a lot of water in the video, but that was way back in July, August sometime. And it had already been seeded. I started walking on in June, and it was all.
Yeah, Chairman, Commissioner, that Sandhill Arroyo is a big arroyo that Public Works has to deal with. The Iffy Brown Farm is the one that captures most of that, captures all of that rainfall. It's a large farm, and it's been several years. Well, it's been a long time since that arroyo has run plumb full. So I know that, and I do know that arroyo and that area. If you look at the desert around that area, there's something going on in that soil too, because the vegetation is very, very sparse in that area. I think you can concur to that as compared to other portions of the desert, such as when you get up into the Settlers Pass area, the East Mesa, the desert's a little bit thicker. But in that section there, it is maybe too saline or something going on in that low soil. So it can manage to support very little vegetation, but we're giving it our best shot. I know that also that El Paso Electric was in that location. They cut through a new roadway to handle their transmission lines, and that we were kind of blamed for a lot of their disturbance, which we were not part of that. And we've had to explain it to several of the residents because they did create a roadway that was bringing in unwanted traffic, unfortunately. So I know they did some disturbance out there as well, but we'll continue to monitor it. We're in the warranty period. We'll go back and at the warranty period and review what's been growing. And then if not, we'll take a look at it and see what we can do as a utility to increase the vegetation.
Thank you, Carl.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Ready for a vote? Chair Little,
Yes.
Commissioner Carmichael,
Yes.
Commissioner Hardy,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Sorg,
Yes.
and the chair, yes. Next
Thank you.
item is resolution number 20-21-068. A resolution approving the awarding of a sole source procurement for 14 global positioning units and accessories, including TerraFlex advanced subscriptions to Altera Central of Houston, Texas, in the amount of $120,330. Have a motion?
So moved, Johnson.
Second by Sword.
Thank you. Discussion?
Good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners. Lucio Garcia, Natural Gas Operations and Maintenance Deputy Director. This resolution, number 2021-068, is for the purchase of 14 global positioning system units. This is a sole source procurement of the 14 GPSs, and this is pursuant to Section 25-95 of the Procurement Code. The vendor is Altera Central out of Houston, Texas, which is a Trimble authorized dealer. The GPSs are used to gather data to update and maintain the Las Cruces Utilities Geographical Information System. The framework for gathering and managing and analyzing the data, which is rooted in the science of geography. For us, this is an asset management tool. Next slide, please. The GPS units are used to identify and document gas system infrastructure, properties, and location. Currently, the GPS units are being utilized by the Natural Gas Operations and Maintenance Program, such as locating, mapping, and corrosion for underground facilities. The new GPS units are compatible with our existing units, as well as our GIS system. These units, 14 units, will be assigned to our gas pressure and service program to identify service lines and meter locations. The use of these GPSs has helped streamline our processes. In addition to minimizing or mitigating damage to our facility by third-party damages, it has allowed us to, at the point that we're at now, is go back and locate our facility within an inch and a half, which is fairly close. This has also eliminated the need to excavate and eliminated man hours to have to excavate and pothole to locate a utility when we can simply go back and GPS the unit. The purchase of these 14 units, which includes accessories, which is a pole to hold the unit up, as well as the TerraFlex Advanced Yearly Subscription, which is cloud-based. So when we gather our data, it goes up to the cloud, and then from there we can retrieve it and load it into our GIS system. Cost per unit is $8,595, and the total cost is $120,330. And in this case, New Mexico gross receipts tax are not applicable. Thank you, and I'll stand for any questions.
I have a question. Are these replacement units? How many units do you have? And are these some of these replacement units or all new additional?
No, sir, these are new ones. We currently have a total of about 8 in locating and mapping, which is
Yeah.
our program that locates our facility. And then we also have it in corrosion where they locate our steel pipes and identify, part of their facility on our steel lines.
Yeah. This will
So
help
these
you
are in
do a
addition
much better
to-
job, right?
Pardon me?
This will help you to do a much better job of.
Yes, sir, and it'll help gather the data. Where
Right.
we're at in the program right now is the work of several years by many. And now we get to a point where we're really accelerating, the information that we're gathering. And we're at a point where with the new technologies, we're able to locate this, our infrastructure fairly accurately.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Are there any questions? Hearing none, ready for a vote. Chair Little,
Yes.
Commissioner Carmichael,
Yes.
Commissioner Hardy,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Sorg,
Yes.
and the chair, yes. Thank you very much.
Thank
Next
you.
resolution is number 20-21 LCU 003A, a resolution of authorizing a purchase order, change order to be increased by $130,000 to the sole source professional services agreement between the City of Las Cruces and Stevens Law LLC of Santa Fe, New Mexico for legal services in the matters of El Paso Electric to change the utilities portion of the amended contract from $160,000 to $290,000 for the remainder of the contract term. Motion. Can I have a motion?
William Little, move to approve.
Carmichael, second.
Thank you. Discussion.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair Archuleta, Chairman, and Commissioners. Alma Ruiz, Senior Office Manager for Utilities, for the record. This resolution before you, 20-21-LCU 003A, is amendment number 1 to Stevens's law firm. This was actually taken to City Council to amend the overall professional services agreement. Before you, what I'm requesting is an increase authorized amount to the purchase order that you approved previously. The increase is to cover additional work that was originally not contemplated, which included hiring expert consultants. The original professional services agreement amount did not include the cost for consultants for the general rate case either. The number of complexity of the PRC matters before, during, and potentially after the general rate case has exceeded expectation. The original purchase order amount that this board approved for the utility portion is $160,000. As a side note, the utilities and the Las Cruces General Fund pay for the total expenses for Stevens's Law. It's split 50-50. And so therefore, this resolution before you is asking for an additional funding of $130,000 to cover the LCU portion of the purchase order, which is a total, would be a total of $290,000. This will get us through, we anticipate, the contract year of February 2021. I stand for any questions you may have.
Questions?
Yeah, Commissioner Johnson, I have a question. I can't find my hand waving button over here. So I had to wait real time. Yeah, we're talking about an 80% increase. Do we feel comfortable that there's 80% more needed by up to the end of this, what you said was anticipated to be in February?
The contract, Alma Ruiz, Office Senior Office Manager for Utilities for the record. Thank you for the question, Commissioner Johnson. Yes, due to the there are several rate cases in progress right now. In particular, the highest one is the general rate case that is with El Paso Electric. So that is going to require that expert consultants, that cost, as well as the litigation cost for Stevens's Law, including all the other smaller litigation rate cases that are ongoing. I will defer to Mr. Joe Provencio and or Robert Cabello, who can actually probably give us a little bit more detail on the other rate cases if you'd like.
Chairman and Commissioners, this is Jose Provencio, Deputy Director for Business Services. As Alma mentioned, there are several other filings ongoing before the Commission that we have actively intervened. And the main driver with respect to the costs increasing to a point that we've had to change the funding levels has been the current general rate increase that El Paso Electric has filed before the Commission. We're set for hearing. There was an initial anticipation that may be a settlement that did not come to any real success. Hearings are scheduled for January. Unfortunately, El Paso Electric has taken a what I would call in the industry a scorched earth policy in terms of submitting tons of discovery with all the interveners. Unfortunately, the outcome for that is even more costs for litigating or contesting this case in front of the Commission. Unfortunately, that is the current strategy they're following. And it's all part of the process in terms of enabling to get additional information to defend their position. Stand by for any questions you may have.
So since contract is up in February, you said, I anticipate that there's going to be a new contract coming on to extend beyond February with all of these cases. Is that correct?
Chairman Commissioner Johnson, that's correct.
Chairman Little, did you have a question?
It was answered. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, ready for a vote. Chair Little?
Yes.
Commissioner Carmichael?
Yes.
Commissioner Hardy?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Sorg?
Yes.
And the chair, yes. Next item is resolution number 20-21-LCU 02021. A resolution authorizing a non-binding memorandum of understanding between the City of Las Cruces and El Paso Electric Company. Can I hear a motion?
Sorg moves to approve.
Is there a second?
Chairman Hardy, second.
Hardy, second. Discussion?
Chairman Commissioners, Jose Provencio, Deputy Director for Business Services. Before you, we have resolution number 20-21-LCU 021. It's an adopting a memorandum of understanding between the City of Las Cruces and El Paso Electric. This is a non-binding memorandum of understanding that seeks to explore the implementation of smart cities initiatives that potentially has the capability of deployment of El Paso Electric's advanced metering infrastructure. If as we sit here, the department has completed its implementation of advanced metering infrastructure with the JCI contract. El Paso Electric's also looking at upgrading or moving on to the AMI technology for their system, especially here in New Mexico. And it seeks to optimize coordination in terms of pulling together this remote data and applying algorithms that provide information to the individual people, which would be the citizens, the city, and the department. We're seeing the benefit of that as we're getting the full advantage and the full capabilities of our water system, and we'll probably see that in the gas system also, for on the water side, enabling and helping and assisting customers with all their issues in terms of sudden increases in water consumption, their billing, and a multitude of other alerts that we get. This whole smart cities initiative is the next step as to how do you pull together, or what are you doing pulling together all this remote data to provide some artificial intelligence to communicate information to the city citizens, its leaders, and its managers and directors, and ultimately provide more a process or information that's usable for all in the system. El Paso Electric looking out for as they look towards implementing AMI, has approached the city, and we're adopting this MOU to work with them. Stand by for any questions you may have.
Questions, comments?
Chair, Vice Chair,
Okay,
thank you. I've been hearing about this for a while. There's two things I'd like to know, have more information on it. One is, what are the benefits to the city that we get if they put these smart meters in? Why do they need an MOU to do it, or do they? And I've also heard some somewhat negative, what would I call it, negative aspects to it. Do you have any of that information, Joe?
Chairman, Vice Chair, and Commissioner Sword, to address that point, is this information is remote, and there are potentials. Again, we're in the infancy of extending this information to a concept called for concept for smart cities. Now, for us, there are potential, not just for the utilities, but in public works. There's also the potential for collaboration with El Paso Electric. Each one of these endpoints has and collects information. I can provide at least the initial point that we're looking at is it possible to avoid duplication of infrastructure if we investigate working in a collaborative manner? I don't know yet. The MOU at least sets out the broad guidelines as to how we would interact and work with El Paso Electric as they bring on their system. It's likely that some of these may not work out. It may or may not be useful. But the whole point is, as smart cities and the concept is being put out, the whole idea is to pull all data together. You know, we have ours. We will eventually have ours coming in maybe from the public works side. El Paso Electric's coming in with their information. So the whole point is you provide the broad guideline as to how we would work that. And this will be a topic, this will be a project that will be of great interest as we move forward.
Well, in addition to that, El Paso Electric's been talking about peak usage of electricity. And it's one way to help bring our rates down. There is an effort to make customers aware of their peak usage, so that they may be able to keep that down, lower usage at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So will these AMIs allow customers to measure their time of use?
Chairman, Vice Chair, Commissioner Sorg, that is a potential application of the rollout of this information. It's unclear to me as to how that would happen on the electric side. I'm not that familiar with it. When I first looked at this, I look at it more from a distribution management type of application. As with any electric utility, there's always issues with outages in all parts of their system. Metering, as you mentioned, has a possibility, but their metering and their metering infrastructure has that and provides that information to the customer. I also see the potential, again, I'm saying and qualifying this as potential in terms of managing their distribution system, in terms of informing them when and where in their vast network is there an outage or is an issue with voltage. Those types of information are more functions of operations and assists them in determining where the problem would be to get service back up online. Again, I'm just looking at this as how would this information that you have from remote sensors throughout your network is able to be pulled together. And remember, this is tons of data coming back. There will be some kind of algorithm that would have to sort out all the information coming back and distill that to the relevant users that need to get the information and condition and state of their system.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Oh, thank you very much. We'll be probably talking about this again someday. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Commissioner Little, do you have a question?
Well, I did, but I've forgotten it.
Okay. About Ms. Walsh, did you want to speak to the board?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Delilah Walsh, Utilities Director. And I just want to sort of answer Councilor Sorg's question a little bit more in the sense that really the purpose of the MOU is the data share. And we've been reviewing this on behalf of city management. Joe was very much involved with it, as well as the city's legal department, because this is something that's happening between EPE and the city. The reason we brought it to our board for your affirmation is because we are sharing data. But to answer the question, the initial benefit is the fact that through the MOU, we get that data cooperation from EPE that we may not necessarily have today. So they're going to gather that, and we want to be able to use it for energy conservation on our side, not only for the utility, but also through public works. So looking at their traffic lighting and peak lighting. And as you know, our tariff rates are based on city usage and commercial usage, and improving that information or improving those rates through the use of data has been a goal of ours and a strategy with the sustainability offices, as well as utilities, as well as PW, when working with EPE. So really the benefit of the MOU is that data share, that not only are we committed to it, but EPE is also committed.
Thank you. Mr. Carmichael?
Yes. Jim Carmichael. I have a question. First, I certainly support anything that leads us to what the strategies of the Smart Cities initiatives might lead us to in the future. I do have a couple of questions. The MOU necessarily is pretty broad and doesn't define very well what data can and cannot be shared. So my two questions are, number one, who is the lead, either from the city standpoint or the utility standpoint? And second, I assume that any data shared will come back through either the city manager or the city legal department before that data can ever be actually transmitted and shared. Is that a fair statement?
Chairman, Commissioner, this is Provencio. That's correct. The reason it's broadly written today is, at least from a perspective when it comes to the data to be acquired or gathered on the El Paso Electric side, without looking at the details of what their project incorporates, you can probably list a couple of, several items that they'll be collecting. Number one, certainly there would be electric use at each endpoint. How that's stored and distributed would be this topic, as you mentioned, vetted through the entire system and through the entire city and legal department for that, for the appropriateness of those type of things. The other would be, as what we do, we look at flow patterns, rates of flow, which on the electric side would be faults and open circuits that they might be able to detect with this system. So there's a broad potential to bring all this together to provide the operators and the customers the best information that's available that technology has the potential of providing.
So who is the lead from the city of Las Cruces in this project?
Well, it would be the utilities department, Commissioner, because we are and have been knowledgeable and are understanding the absolute benefit that we're achieving with the AMI program.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I could add to that.
Yes, go ahead.
Delilah Walsh, Utilities Director. Commissioner Carmichael, we've been the lead in pursuing the MOU and communicating with EPE because we've been the intervening party, particularly when we have the rate cases, and Joe is essentially our city-wide expert when it comes to EPE and those relationships. However, this MOU has already been executed by city management and it's under their purview of the manager's office. However, when Joe and I spoke, we thought it was important to keep the board informed of that commitment from the city, which translates to a commitment of the utility. And so the MOU and the execution of such, and even the, I'll say execution again, is at the purview of the city manager's office. However, because Joe has been our expert and the utility is the one gathering the data, and the utility has been most involved with EPE when it comes to rate case intervention, as well as any other relationships, we are the primary resource for the manager. So we are very heavily involved because of those aspects.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Hearing none and ready for a vote. Chair Little,
Yes.
Commissioner Carmichael,
Yes.
Commissioner Hardy,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Sorg,
Yes.
and the chair, yes. Thank you. The next item is resolution number 20-21 LCU 022. The resolution authorizing Las Cruces utility staff to make administrative revisions to the Las Cruces Utilities wastewater rate tariff to meet Americans with Disabilities Act requirements. Call for a motion.
Carmichael, move to approve.
Second by Sorg.
Discussion.
Vice Chair, Commissioners, Jose Provencio, Deputy Director of Business Services. Resolution before you, number 20-21-LCU 022, seeks to approve the ADA revisions to the wastewater tariff. In short, there are no changes or revisions to the tariff language, terms and conditions, and charges. This brings the actual document to be ADA compliant and have the ability to post this on the city website to assist customers that have visually impaired issues. This will complete all the revisions for ADA compliance for all our tariffs. Stand by for any questions you may have.
Any questions? Hearing none, ready for a vote. Chair Little,
Yes.
Commissioner Carmichael,
Yes.
Commissioner Hardy,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Sorg,
Yes.
and the chair, aye. That completes all of our resolutions today. We're ready for old business. Ms. Walsh?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. First of all, we'll start with Adrian to give you an update of our 10-year action plan. Adrian?
Mr. Vice Chair, Commissioners, thank you. Adrian Widmer, Interim Assistant Utilities Director. I'll update you on the 10-year plan update. Some of you had mentioned that you were interested in the Cloudcroft plant and what the status is of that. And if you all are interested, the engineer that is working on that is more than willing to come and either do a short presentation during a normal board meeting, or if you'd like a work session, we can certainly get that arranged. The meeting with NMED went well, although they do want drinking water standards when it comes to ASR. I'm in the process of scheduling another meeting. Since the first one, I was not able to be in that because I was called out for another issue. So there were issues that I wanted to discuss a little bit further with them. Also, we could request that Shoemaker go ahead and expand on the ASR a little bit so that they can come back and say what exactly would be necessary in order to upgrade the East Mesa Water Reclamation Facility to bring water to drinking water standards. And with that, I'll hold for, oh, one other thing I wanted to bring up. Also, there was a discussion on the spreadsheet and with water rights and how those should be utilized and tied in. And so wanted to let you know on Monday, I have a meeting with a hydrology firm that has a lot of information and they have a lot of experience with system and water rights work where they actually tie other systems in so that we can go ahead and exercise outstanding rights. So I'm going to be discussing with them on integrating the Horonata Water Company systems into ours. So with that, I'll stand for questions, or if you'd like me to expand the scope a little bit, or ask the engineer to come and talk about the Cloudcroft project, which is a type of indirect reuse.
Any comments or questions? I think it would be good to have Shoemaker do the ASR, analysis to see what's going to be required to do that at the East Mesa facility. I think that would be good. As far as the Cloudcroft facility, I'm quite familiar with that project, but maybe others are not. So I would stand to ask other members of the board if they would be interested in having somebody from Cloudcroft come and give us a presentation sometime in the future.
This is William Little. I would like to hear from Cloudcroft,
Okay.
depending on how long it might take, a short work session or an expanded administrative report. Adrian can tell us which is most appropriate.
Well, actually, maybe just a shorter work session may work out that way. The engineer can go ahead and present and give the history and where they're at and give you all an idea of what he's worked through through the environment department. That may be a little more appropriate, just in case you all have some additional questions associated with it.
Okay. Let's plan on a short work session then at a subsequent meeting, whenever that can be scheduled. Okay?
Thank you.
Any other old business?
Yes, sir. We have an update from Robin Lawrence regarding the reroute and grappler schedule.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners. Robin Lawrence, Deputy Director for Solid Waste. So last week and this week, we have been working with Postal Pros to send out our new grappler calendars for this year. We always send a letter with them kind of explaining what the services are for the grappler. But this year, because we're trying to rebalance our routes, And based on the growth of the city, we went through the rerouting process. And so the letter also explains that a customer service day may have been affected. And it tells them, based on the address listed in the letter, it will provide a new route pickup day and the route number. And so we're going to be going live with that January 4th. And those should be received within probably this next coming week by all our residential customers. So if anybody has any questions.
Any questions? Thank you, Robin.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Walsh, any other old business?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, we've got Alma coming up. She's got a few items to talk about, the board awards and our annual report. Alma?
Hi, Commissioners, Chairman, Vice Chair. Alma Ruiz, Senior Office Manager for the Utilities Department, for the record. First of all, I just wanted to follow up on last month's agreement to continue to hold the LCU Board Cash Award this year. We're currently working towards a December 18th virtual event where we'll present that award. Right now, as of tomorrow, we will be 100% accounted for donations from the board. So I just wanted to thank you all in advance for that. Another report I'd like to touch base on was a action or a recommendation from Commissioner Sorg last month in regards to receiving a lot of emails from my staff based on turnover. And it was a valid statement because as of December the 7th, I had another staff turnover due to a promotion. Ms. Liseth Nunez is now Administrative Assistant for the PIO department within the city. So we congratulate her on that. But because of that, Commissioner Sorg's request, I went ahead, as you know, and created a generic LCU Board admin support email that you will all be receiving in the future solely from that email address, so that you know who to look for, what to look for, and there's no more confusion as staff gets promoted and or attrition. So I see Sorg clapping, so you're welcome. And then the other final update is we have published our fiscal year 1920 annual report, and drum roll please, because look who made the cover. We dedicated this fiscal year to Dr. Garcia. However, it does highlight all of the accomplishments, a lot of the accomplishments, not all, because it'd be a book this wide, but most of our accomplishments throughout the fiscal year of 1920 for each line of business. And so you all will be receiving a copy of that annual report. The counselors have already received it through city management, but the remainder of you will have it delivered to your homes. And so you can have a copy of that at your disposal. And that's all. I stand for any questions you may have on any of those three topics I brought up.
Commissioner Little, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you, William Little. Cycling back to the results of last month's work session, I think the consensus was that we were going to let all the various entities complete their reports and file them up to and including the Conservation Committee, and get all of those final reports in front of us before we launched into anything brand new. Is that what other people remember? That's what the minutes reflect.
Yes, I think you're correct.
Delilah, do you want to take that?
Yes, sir. And we are moving forward with that. If I'm sorry, Delilah Walsh, Utilities Director, for the record. That is what we're progressing toward. Regarding the annual report, it is just like a CAFR. We made a commitment to publish that each year with updates on the utility activities. So that's something that we just do internally, if I'm understanding the question correctly. And Mr. Chair, I'll defer to Alma once again. First of all, I want to say before I ask her to explain a little bit more on the updates of the Zoom meetings, the reason you see turnover in our staff is because Alma is one of the toughest and best trainers of administrative staff. And so everybody who leaves is being promoted. And so I just want to speak to that they keep stealing our staff because they know it's an easy person to onboard and bring into their team because they are well trained. But I did want to defer back to Alma to discuss some changes in our Zoom meeting protocol.
Thank you, Delilah, for the reminder. Yes, so as a result of the generic email that I created with IT's help and with Lisette's promotion, the webinar links that you have, they are a recurring meeting link. However, because her account is going to be disabled, we will be establishing a new board webinar link. My question to you was, in the past when Lisette set it up, we failed to add reminders, but in this new process that will start for the January meeting, we will add a reminder to the recurring webinar link, which means you'll receive an initial email when we create it on Friday, tomorrow. Then you'll receive a reminder email 1 week prior to the board meeting with that same unique link for the panelists. Then you'll receive a reminder 1 day prior and then 1 hour prior. Just because our board meetings are held only once a month, we know that your emails, you'll end up getting a lot of emails, and these reminders will get buried in your email. And so the system is set up to allow us to set reminders, and that's what we'll do for all future meetings. Do you have any questions on this protocol?
I have a comment. That's a good idea because you're right. I get tons of emails and I get lost unless you remind me frequently. So that's a good idea. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Chairman Little, did you have a comment?
Yes, please. I understand that we'll be getting a new reminder. Does that mean we should go to our calendars and wipe out everything that's there now?
Yeah, Alma Ruiz, Senior Office Manager for the Utilities. Thank you, Chair, for that comment. Yes, that would be the recommendation. Get rid of any past Zoom webinar links that you've received and calendar reminders. And so we'll start fresh tomorrow. I will set out new link emails to each of you. And please note, these email links that you get are unique to each of you. Each person on this panelist has a unique link. So please do not share or forward your link in case you have a constituent or someone else that wants to join the meeting. There is a generic public participation link that is attached to the agenda that we publish, and that's how the public can participate. Using that link, they register, and then they get a unique link that they should not forward to anybody else as well.
Thank you.
And thank you. And thank you for the reminders.
Sure, you're welcome.
Mr. Chair, if I can continue, just as an FYI, our city manager tour will take place tomorrow. Our first half of the tour, the second half will take place in January. Mr. Peely will be joining us for a presentation on the utility as well as a facility tour. We were also able to include our new assistant city manager, who is Eric Enriquez. And I'm sure many of you know Mr. Enriquez. He was our former fire chief, or most recently our former fire chief. And we were fortunate enough to be able to include them both in the tour. Additionally, I do want to give you an update on the developmental impact fee I am behind on that, and I even told EFO this is my fault. I'm behind on getting a public presentation ready. As you know, on the development impact fee allocation, that has to be set by City Council. And so the plan is to present a public input presentation that can be run through the city's outreach office. We will do a full presentation on what the allocation is today, as well as what the proposals were based on recommendations from the mayor and council. We'll gather that public feedback, go through the outreach office, go through all the other public outreach opportunities we have within the city, and then present those options to City Council as well as the feedback. So I did tell them I'm behind. We plan to have that going by January 1st, and that's my goal. And I just wanted to give you an update on that the allocation consideration will be going to council in the early part of 2021. But we are going to do public outreach first. With that, we can move on to new business, Mr. Chair.
Okay, let's move on to new business.
All right, the first one is I'm going to actually turn it over to Adrian for a moment to talk about we just received news today about the ISO rating, and she can talk a little bit about the utilities involvement with that. Adrian?
Thank you, Delilah. Adrian Widmer, Interim Assistant Utilities Director. We just heard that from the fire department that we got a rate as 1, which is the highest rating that we can get. So through technical supports work and operations in water, they work very, very closely together, and we're just very, very excited. So just got that from the fire department, and they did the report, they had it checked out, and so we have a rating of 1, and that is quite an accomplishment, and we're very, very proud, and everyone should be happy because that means their insurance rates will continue to be affordable. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. Mr. Chair, again, for the record, Delilah Walsh, Utilities Director. I do want to also give a kudos to Jeff Dillard and to Stephen Valdez. I don't know if you're aware, but the mayor wanted to send masks to all City of Las Cruces residents. And so Jeff was able to cull the utilities service database, not necessarily the mailing database. We didn't want to send masks to another state, but the residential database in order to find a good mailing list. And Stephen worked with Postal Pros, who is our billing provider, to mail our bills, and with the fire department to get that going. So the fire department has shipped masks to Postal Pros. Postal Pros is working on stuffing those and getting them out to City of Las Cruces residents. So this was not a utilities project, but it's something that administration tapped us for. And so they did go out of their way to take on that extra step to meet the initiatives of the mayor and the council. My last item, and it was, and Councilor Sorg, of course, knows, Councilor Sorg made a request at the last City Council meeting to have administration work on efforts to electrify our fleet, as well as looking at options for either eliminating or reducing the natural gas utility within the city. So I have talked to the city manager, and he agreed we could separate those into 2 separate initiatives, simply because fleet is responsible for fleet and utilities is responsible for the natural gas utility. So we've separated that request into 2. The utility will be taking the lead on that, and we had this discussion in July. We talked about decarbonization and initiatives that are coming forward in the future. We know we're going to see changes with the new administration. And even prior to that request, Lucio has actually for the last 2 days, and different members of our staff have been attending seminars on decarbonization strategies, as well as outlooks and impacts of future and possible administrative changes on the federal level, as well as regulatory changes. So the manager has taken that request and assigned it to utilities for us to start pursuing, because there's a lot to look into. We have to make sure that anything that's recommended to council is not contrary to council's current plans, meaning Elevate Las Cruces has some very specific guidelines for affordable energy and affordability within our community. And then our climate action plan is very specific as far as decarbonization goals. So we want to make sure whatever moves forward is in alignment with those plans. In addition to that, we have to look at our regulatory commitments. And I will say the counselor's recommendation was over a 30-year period. It wasn't something we're going to do tomorrow or want to do tomorrow, but we have to look at the regulatory impacts. You know, we do have a responsibility to provide affordable energy to our citizens, and we have to answer to the state regulators on that end. In addition to that, we have to look at the consideration of our service area beyond the city of Las Cruces, as well as our financial commitments, and as well as the council and the board's financial commitment for management of tens of millions of dollars worth of assets. You know, you've got to make sure any decisions you make are responsible to the taxpayers and the ratepayers. So that did come up, and that is something that the utility will be working on. And again, to make sure we're in line with the wishes of council and with the board, as well as long-term strategies for the city as a whole.
Thank you. Is that complete on new business?
Oh, yes, yes, sir. But I believe Councilor Sorg has his hand up too.
Okay, Councilor Sorg, go ahead.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I was going to add something, but Delilah actually did touch upon it at the end of her presentation there. And that is that we're looking at 30 years. This is a long range plan. We want to look out and start planning now for 30 years from now. And that's why I brought this concerning the natural gas part anyway. But I have other things too I'll talk about after when it comes time for council, for commissioner comments.
Thank you, Councilor. And thank you, Mr. Chair. That's it for new business.
Okay. Board's general discussion. Does any member of the board have a question or comment? Hearing none.
Yes, I have one. Yes, I have one.
Commissioner Sorg, I'm sorry.
My hand was up, waiting to be called. I've got a request for our natural gas department.
We lost you.
You're muted, Gil.
Yeah, I know I'm muted. I have a request from the members of my family here, who are the cooks in the family for the most part. And they are very concerned about the natural gas coming to our cook stove. The flame is quite yellow. And I remember asking about this before, and I don't recall the answer I got, so I can't tell them why it's happening. They're quite concerned. Is there somebody in the natural gas department that can explain why we get a yellow flame along with a little blue? Lucio?
Commissioner Sorg, I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes.
There you are. The color of the flame has how can I explain this? If you look at the spectrum of a flame, it has to do with the combination of you either have too much oxygen or not enough. If you look at a flame color chart, it's yellowish when you don't have enough oxygen. As you move to the optimal point where you're right at the right fuel ratio, it's nice and blue.
Okay.
So either a combination of you don't have too much, you have too much oxygen or not enough oxygen. It also could do with carbon that's being burnt around it, because that's what gives you the orange flame around it as well. Ideally, you should have a nice blue flame that doesn't flutter. You know, it should be nice and blue and give you a nice, because you're looking at the spectrum, I think the hottest point of natural gas is 1900 degrees Celsius, which is about 3,600 degrees Fahrenheit, I believe. That's the optimal there.
So how do you get more oxygen into the flame?
You know, and that's an element that ties to many factors. One of them is construction. If you're in a new home, the current code, you know, the envelope of the building is very tight. So, you know, it has to do with that, and maybe the way the orifice could be. I don't know what type of stove you have. The orifice is what controls the flow rate of your gas. There are just many factors, but I can certainly look into it and provide you some information. If I can call you directly and get some specifics, we can certainly help with that.
Yeah, that would be okay. It just started happening one day out of the blue. Pardon me.
And we can look at other things, you know, as well as pressure, and make sure, you know, there's several variables that we can look at. I know that happened to me when I changed the burner or cleaned the burner on our stove and I put it in incorrectly and it messed with the ratios of the fuel. And as we adjusted it, the flame turned back to nice and blue.
Okay,
But we certainly, yes, sir, we'd be glad to help with that.
okay, thank you.
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Chairman, Counselor Sorg, I was just going to repeat what Lucio did. I had to change my burner shutter and I had to adjust it. So to get my blue flame back. Just
I
as
don't even know what a burner shutter is. Okay, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? If not, our next meeting is January the 14th, 2021. So with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Carmichael.
William Little.
Okay, is there a second? Carmichael? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you very much.
thank you all.
Thank you.